Mhm. Hi, everybody. Blessings from South Africa. So happy you can join me this morning. It's actually 3 o'clock in the afternoon here, but 9 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast of the United States. You may not be on the East Coast of the United States, I don't know, but wherever you are and whatever time it is where you are, good morning. So my name is Reverend Denise, and I am an ordained New Thought minister. We're going to talk about New Thought stuff, I think, for the next few weeks. Hi, Les. Welcome from North Carolina. I am sitting here in this moment, gazing out into the backyard, which is for me the African bush, and looking at some guinea fowl and some hornbills. I think that's all at the moment. Maybe I'll show them to you all later. It's been a pretty nice week for me. There's been guests here at the house, a wonderful gentleman and his mother of South Africans. He's visiting from the UK, and we just had a really pleasant week. My friend Misty is on her way from North Carolina to join me here. She is now on a layover in the Netherlands and will be here tomorrow morning at 11:30, and we are going to be on our way to Botswana. So next week, I don't know what's going to happen next week. I'm not sure whether I'll actually stream from Botswana or prepare recorded. We're going to start a series today, so I'm pretty happy about that. Oh, hi, Teresa. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Where are you from? What city are you from? I'm going to assume probably Florida or North Carolina, but maybe not. You could be from anywhere. So hopefully your week has been good. I did not do a blog this week. I don't know why. I think probably because I wasn't taking many pictures since I was kind of at home. But you can count on one next week from Raleigh. Okay, hi, Teresa from Raleigh. You can count on one next week from Botswana. Lots of new pictures and new animals. Botswana borders us, so it's not too far of a trip. And hopefully we'll get to go up to the Okavango Delta, which is a water location. So lots and lots of elephants and hippos and such. So I think what I'm going to do is pray us in, which is to truly just bless our time together, and then to share with you, hi Toby from Naples, Florida, to share with you really I decided it was time again to revisit the four kingdoms of consciousness, or what I like to call it really is the pathway to our spiritual awakening. And we'll set the stage for why that's even a conversation worth having, which it definitely is for us personally, it definitely is for us globally. No matter where you are, no matter where you live, we are still on the pathway of awakening to our spiritual identity, which in turn also awakens us to really living lives that are way more happy, way more productive, way more cooperative, way more sharing, way more prosperous than most people's lives are. And so it's always a worthwhile conversation to have. And whatever that awakening is, it always starts with us. So let me pray us in. Let me speak a word of blessing upon our time together. Others will be joining us. As others do join us, please say hello. This broadcast is also watched during the week when we're not live. So blessing is a good thing because then it blesses everybody who joins us at whatever time they join us. So as I do that, just take a moment with me to take a breath, take a deep cleansing breath, early morning breath for most of you. Welcome yourself into the day. Welcome yourself into joining with each other and with me in consciousness at the level of the mind, at the level of thought, at the level of the infinite invisible of which we all participate and partake of together, no matter where we are. I often like to say that God doesn't care where the bodies are 1 ounce. That love is the only thing that really matters ever, anytime, any place, under any circumstances. And so it's from that place of our connection with each other, our connection with this power, this presence that I call God, but you can call love or the quantum field or nature or infinite wisdom or intelligence. You can call it whatever you want to. Or you can call it nothing. You could call it what Ernest Holmes called it. Ernest Holmes called it the thing itself. But we are connected to all that is. We're connected to each other, and it's from that place that I bless our time together, absolutely affirming and knowing that if we are here, something will be said, something will be heard, something will be felt, something will be experienced that lifts us, that raises us, that shines the light in us and as us just a little more brightly. And that as that happens for us, we become way more palatable to our friends, our family, our communities, and wherever our sphere of influence takes us. And so I'm grateful for this moment that you've taken and for the moment that I'm taking that allows us to share whatever is to be shared today. And so for the blessings we give and the blessings we receive, I am grateful. We let it be, and so it is. Amen. Amen. So, mm, so I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Four Kingdoms of Consciousness, where I was first introduced to them by Michael Beckwith in part of his visioning process. For those of you who know, I did all my studying at the Agape International Spiritual Center. I received my ministerial credentials under his tutelage, and the Four Kingdoms has been a major piece of my personal practice and also a major piece of my study and my teaching for many, many years. I'm going to show you an overview, though I don't want to get too tangled up in the overview. But we will take a moment and let me just show it to you here. So there are 4 levels, and really it's a pathway of awakening that every human being seems to me must make. And level 1 through level 4. Level 1 is victim consciousness, which is what we're going to cover for the next few weeks. And it really is where everybody starts, where everybody lives mostly, and our journey and the challenges to really come out of that. Level 2 is the manifestor consciousness, level 3 is channel consciousness, and level 4 is unity consciousness, or oneness with the divine, or Christ consciousness, if you'd like to call it that. So I'm going to post this. I will actually post this on my website that you can go find it this week. But it's in New Thought, to just create a little bit of a context, the primary premise of New Thought. The primary premise of New Thought is that consciousness, form follows consciousness, or consciousness precedes form. And what this really means is that that thoughts are things, and that the world doesn't exist as a separate thing apart from us, that we are creating it in every single moment with our attitudes, our thoughts, our beliefs. We're creating it in every single moment we're creating it in every single moment in a cooperative relationship with everyone else. I think I have an overlay here I want to take off. Yeah, there we go. So it's not, so we can't really get too caught up with the way things are in this moment, because the way things are in this moment are an effect, not a cause. The way things are in this moment is the result, not the cause. So if we want to change the way things are, whether that's with us personally or whether that's with us as a global community, we have to do it by changing the way that we think and the way that we feel and the way that we believe and the way that we talk and the way that we walk. We have to change ourselves in order for things to be different. One of my favorite quotes is a quote from the Buddha, where he says, "With our thoughts, the world arises." So it isn't like Ernest Holmes, who created Science of Mind, or like the Fillmores, who created Unity, or like Oprah Winfrey or Eckhart Tolle or any of our spiritual teachers. Nobody is making anything up out of nothing. These ideas, these beliefs, that this idea of a quantum field out of which all things arises as a function of attention more than anything, but also just that which is visible, arises out of invisible sources. And those invisible sources are sources of energy and thought. And so that's really kind of where the whole thing comes from. And now I would probably back up for a minute as well and talk about why the pathway of awakening is so important. And I love to try to put it into perspective, because we need perspective. Because if you just listen, if you do nothing but listen to the news, if you do nothing but read the newspapers, it all feels rather dismal. If you do nothing but, really even listen to your own thoughts, it all seems rather dismal and hopeless and inevitable and broken. And now, not everything, of course, but I'm trying to make a point here that when I look at the effect or the results, it looks to me like we could change, like the world could use some different kind of thinking. It seems that we could use some spiritualization, that we could use we can use a new identity. So, so it doesn't feel to me like there's really any better to do that to continue to rise up in consciousness. Now, on a human level, on a personal level, it's really simple to see in some cases, because people live with a lot of worry, a lot of doubt, a lot of fear, a lot of poverty, a lot of hunger, a lot of negativity, a lot of unhappiness, a lot of complaining, a lot of not doing what they want to do, not loving who they want to love, not being where they want to be, that most people are at the effect of the world for most of their lives. And when you hear the news and somebody's at the effect of the world, it's really hard for us, if we're at the effect of the world, to be of any value to those people, right? We can complain about it, and we can say, oh, poor them, and we can throw money at them, but that's not really sufficient to alter the course of humanity. To alter the course of humanity, we need to alter the course of our own lives. I know it is a lofty subject for what I do here. Hi, greetings from Brian and Jem in our Northwest Arkansas. It feels like a lot to do, but I don't know of anything else to do with my life other than talk about these things, because I practice them. When I begin to feel like a victim of my circumstances, or a victim of the news, or a victim of another person, I don't know anything else to do but to change my thinking and to begin to see correctly, because it's all like looking through a really faulty pair of glasses. I don't know who said this, but somebody did say at one moment, the world will be to you what you are to the world. Whatever it is that you see through your eyes and your conditioning and your orientation is what the world will be to you. One person might look and see something ugly, and another person's going to look and see something inspiring. Another person's going to look and see something interesting. So you can't separate out the world and your interpretation of the world. It's not possible. So where I want us to start is with level 1. So level 1 is what is called victim consciousness. Now, we don't like the word victim because we get our feathers ruffled. I'm not a victim. But all it really means is that the orientation that we have is one, first of all, to the world. So victim consciousness is thinking that the world is concrete and you have no power over it. So when we're in that consciousness, we're adapting ourselves to people, places, circumstances, and conditions. One of the qualities of living in that place is that you as an individual have no will. It's not like you can't change anything. You can't make it happen. And the orientation for this level of consciousness is physical. So the orientation for living in this mode of living is physical orientation, which is that the world is real. Now, to shift out of this into level 2, this is level 1 consciousnness. To shift out of level 2, you have to really ask yourself, it's a choice, because you have to ask yourself, do I want to exchange ordinary life, business as usual life, for a different kind of living? And I would call it for extraordinary living. Because the moment you're no longer living at the effect of the world, life becomes to be more of your own design, more of your own architecting. experiences of happiness and power increase. So it's really a question: do I want to exchange ordinary life for extraordinary life? Now, I also would call this stage the invitation to awaken to possibility. So until we gain some control over our experience and over our lives, until we gain some control, we are going to feel like it's inevitable rather than life is possible. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you'll begin to feel like any luck is just, anything good happens is lucky. You're at the effect of the kindness of others. I don't know. So I would call this journey, this movement out of level 1 consciousness, awakening to possibility, and a really awakening to unlimited possibility. Remember, we're trying to navigate going from victim consciousness to unity consciousness, or oneness consciousness, or Christ consciousness, which is pure consciousness, really. So as we go through this together, and this is going to take us a little bit of time because we only have about 30 or 45 minutes together on Saturday mornings. And of course, you can join me on Zoom afterwards, after this, if you want to, for a little more chatter about it. But so the very first, there are 7. I've synthesized it down into 7 things to talk about and 7 things to work on. I'm just going to read them. I guess actually I could show these to you for a moment, and then I'll come back here. Let me show them. I will show them to you. So this is victim consciousness only. So exploration of the conditioned self, your motivation to change. Well, those are the first 2 we're going to cover really today. Forgiveness of yourself and others, releasing the past and your story about the past. Ceasing addictive behaviors, exploring the power of context. That will be one Saturday all by itself. The cultivation of self-esteem, self-respect, and self-regard, and then exploring our spiritual beliefs. So those are the areas of conversation and discussion and exploration for us all. And then I'll come back to the spiritual practices in a minute, because all along the way, as you're evolving and we're growing, as we grow, there are spiritual practices that support your growth. So this particular moving out of level 1 consciousness into level 2 consciousness, and please forgive the levels. It's not really meant to be as academic as that sounds, or as intellectual as that sounds, but it's really, as your consciousness expands, you have different realizations, different understandings, different spiritual practices support you on that journey. So it's just a way, it truly is just a way of talking about it. So the first one was exploration of the conditioned self, and this one we've talked about many, many times, and really I could be getting boring to some of you because I really only talk about the same thing all the time. And the conditioned self is merely that self that is the result of the domestication and orientation from the minute you were born until now. Specifically not till now, but really to adulthood, and certainly until the moment when you awaken out of that conditioned self. The truth is, the moment you see the conditioned self, you can see it as separate from your unconditioned self. The hypnotism is over. The mesmerism is over once you clearly make the distinction within your own heart. And this isn't a mental thing. It's more of a feeling thing and a knowing. You know, like when you can see that how you are, who you are, what you believe is right, your morals, your standards, your judgments, your opinions, all of that initially comes from wherever you were born, whoever told you what they told you, whatever your priest or your spiritual religious upbringing was, whatever your parents said, all of that made you adult that you are. And then we would call that the exploration of that is your conditioned self. Ernest Holmes would have said, part of all of the work we're doing here is not to give up that self, because you might want to keep it. It might be working for you. You might love the self that you are. But the work here is to see it, is to be at choice rather than to be at no choice. So it's one thing to say, well, I'm a Democrat because I've explored all of the principles of democracy, and I've explored the history of democracy and the future of democracy, and I'm deciding that the path I want to take is as a Democrat. Or you might say, well, my mom was a Democrat, parents were Democrats, of course I'm a Democrat. But you may explore the principles of being a Republican, and you could then say, I thought I was a Democrat, but now that I've explored this, I think I'm really more of a Republican. And it doesn't really matter, but what does matter is choosing the self that you think you are, because the moment you're at choice, you're then in a position to actually create out of nothing rather than out of something, which is your conditioned past. Now, one of the ways you can explore this for yourself is to see if you think you're right or not. Because if you think you're right enough to fight with people, to sacrifice loving relationships with people, to kill or to injure with your words, if you think you're right, then it needs to be explored, because the fully spiritually awakened self none of that goes on. There's just unity consciousness. There isn't me and you, or us and them, or right and wrong. That in God, those things don't exist. It's like purely an ego activity. So another way of talking about the conditioned self is to talk about the ego self, or the self that thinks it's a self apart from God, or apart from other people, or apart from the animals, or apart from the trees. The awakened spiritual being is at one with all of that, and not a separate or apart from it. So, at any rate, so the first one of the big pieces of work within the first blossom, the first ray of sunshine is the exploration of the conditioned self, or the self the ego self that you believe yourself to be based on your conditioning or your domestication as a human being on this planet. So you can do that. One of the ways you can just do that is just to take inventory of everything you believe and why you believe it, everything you think is right and good, who you think you are, what you think your possibilities are. Most of us are corralled in by a belief system that, conscious and unconscious, by the way. In fact, most of what you believe is unconscious. It's not like you're. Here's the deal. Remember I said, so this is deep, so this is kind of important, so listen kind of carefully. Remember I said that form follows consciousness, or consciousness precedes form. So what you believe about yourself and the world you live in is responsible for the life you have and your experience of the life that you have. So if this is it's harder to see for yourself, but so let me talk about my grandma. So my grandma was born during the Depression. So she was domesticated and conditioned out of the Depression. She lived her entire life. Her conditioned self, her ego self, believed that there would never be enough. It was a belief. It wasn't the truth about the world or about her conditions even, but it lived in her like a consciousness of lack, or a consciousness of not enough. And as a result, in her life, she lived as if she did not have enough, as if there would never be enough. I think I've told this story before, but when I was a little girl, about 10, I had two sisters and we were all little. So I was 10 and Laura was 9 and Janelle was 6 or something like that. And we would stand for hours in food lines. Hours. Now we're talking 1960. We would go stand in food lines to get milk and butter and eggs. Milk, butter, and bread. And because she didn't, supposedly, I guess she didn't have the money to buy it. I'm not quite sure why we did that, because the truth is she had plenty of money. When she died, she left my mom a lot of money. Not $1 million, but hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. She certainly did not need to be standing in food lines. She worked as a nurse, so she had a job. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about when we're exploring for ourselves the conscious and subconscious, or conscious and unconscious belief systems. If you grew up thinking you weren't good enough, or your mother said, I never really wanted you, or you're not as pretty as your sister, or you're just stupid, you're not the smartest male in the whatever these things that get said to us as children, or the way we're treated as children, we come into adulthood living them in our circumstances. And please, you must look. It's not because I say so, it just is how it works, and it's why all these worldly conditions and personal conditions perpetuate themselves for eternity, because we never question them. We never rise above them. We never open our hearts to them. So do that work. Just begin to think about it. And you can, if it is hard to do for yourself, you can look at someone that's close to you and begin to kind of catch in consciousness what their belief systems might be based on how they live and how they act, right? How about here's another, and there's only 3 or 4 in the human history, so it's not like you have to dig too hard. One is, I'm not worthy. That's a huge conditioning. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of happiness. I'm not worthy of success. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of, I know a lot of people with a lot of money who, rather than buy the cookies they really, really love, will go buy the cheapest brand. Or somebody who's in pain and you try to help them and they just block you in every way, say, no, 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 it's just this way, nothing will help. So it's kind of like that. And it goes back really to victim consciousness, where it feels like it's being done to us as beings, that we have no power. Then the other one I want to cover today, because it's important, is the motivation to change. Like in order for you, or I, not when I say you, I'm not really pointing to you particularly, in order for you or I to change, it is absolutely necessary that we have a motivator, that something has got to motivate you to become different. Something's got to motivate you to give up your ways of being. Something's got to motivate you to go through the pain and discomfort of change. Because true change and pain, true spiritual awakening, true transformation, true evolution is going to cause a little bit of issues in terms of your well-being. And here's why. Who talked about this was Don Miguel Ruiz in his book. He talked about the Book of Laws. It's like our personal book of laws. And the personal book of laws are made up of all the rules and regulations of your childhood and your conditioning. And when you start breaking those rules, no matter what the rule is, you could have a rule that says to leave your bedroom without making your bed in the morning is really bad, or you got really yelled at for it. So you have a rule now, you're 46 years old, and you cannot leave your room with an unmade bed. And if you try to leave your room with an unmade bed, it's going to cause some angst in your solar plexus. Oh my God, I've broken the rules. Oh my God, I've done something wrong. Even though you're 46 years old and you have every right to leave an unmade bed in your bedroom if you want to. There's no law. God has no law about making beds. Now, I'm being silly, but you get my point. We have rules about everything. So a lot of people have rules that they can't say no. If somebody asks them to do something, you can't say no. You can only say yes. Or you can only lie and make up stories why you can't say yes. But that's ridiculous. There's no law like that. You can say no. You can say no to anything. Somebody can say, do you want to go out to dinner tonight? You can say, no, I really don't feel like going out to dinner tonight. Or if you don't want to do that, just say, I'm not sure. Let me think about it for a second, see what else I have going on, and then you can say no. I know these sound like silly things, but I'm telling you, people really do live. We all do. We all do. I don't too much anymore. There is one of the there's a few benefits of aging, and one of the benefits is you get way more comfortable in just being yourself. You get way more comfortable just saying yes and no, and people give you lots of space. And but I want everyone to learn how to do that when you're 20. I mean, I wish I could have known at 20 what I know now. I would have had a much happier decade or two in there if I could have done some of my spiritual evolving at a younger age. So, but that's why I teach it now, right? So other people can do it. So you need a motivator. The best way I know how to help you know what I'm talking about is by sharing the motivator, because I went through some kind of teaching like this, which helped me. And I remember I used to be a smoker. I smoked. I started smoking when I was 14, and I came from a whole family of smokers, so smoking was totally acceptable in my family. In fact, it was probably a rule that you had to smoke. Like there's something wrong with you if you didn't smoke. And I smoked up until the time I was 45. So that's, I smoked for 30 years. My Every adult in my family really died from some kind of smoking disease. But I remember being asked, what's going to motivate you to quit smoking? And I tried quitting. I really did, because I got to a certain place where I didn't want to smoke. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it smelled. I didn't like what it was doing to my lungs. But I just couldn't. I felt so trapped, imprisoned by this habit. And I just remember somebody making me do the work of, well, what would make it worth it? Like, what would make it worth it to you to go what you need to go through, what you will need to go through to never smoke again? What would you need to do? And by the way, this can apply to drugs or alcohol or a relationship or eating. I mean, it could apply to anything. And for me, I wanted to be free. I felt imprisoned by my behavior. And I remember somebody saying to me, well, change your behavior. That's ridiculous. Nobody's the boss of you but you. If you can quit smoking, if you want to quit smoking. And it's like, no, I can't. I've tried. I can't. I just can't. Right? And anyway, so my biggest motivator then, and it continues to be my biggest motivator in life, is I believe that my divine birthright is to be free. Free to live the way I want to live, to make the choices I want to make, to go where I want to go, to do what I want to do, and that I believe that I have an obligation to live my life that way. That any good I do on this earth will be by living my life that way. So my motivator was freedom, but there are other motivators for change. What are some of them? You guys are on here. What are other motivators? What could motivate you to do what you need to do, which is going to be a little uncomfortable? Like, what's the prize? What's the prize for going through the pain of change? Anybody have another one? There's just a couple that are really, really worth it. To try to quit smoking so you'll be healthier isn't sufficient motivator for most people. It might be if you've been diagnosed with lung cancer, but to be healthier really isn't, or so that people will like you better because your mother wants you to. None of those things really will get you through the discomfort of becoming a different person. And by the way, the change doesn't have to be to quit smoking. The change could be to be more loving. The change could be, oops, where did you all go? The change could be, oh, there you are. Les, I'm not sure. Material gain, maybe material gain. If you're maybe material gain. If you're poor, if you live in poverty and you don't have your basic needs met, then changing that could be a motivator so that you have sufficient food, sufficient housing, sufficient comfort. I'm talking what we need to survive, because not most of the world's people on the planet don't have that. To love yourself, yes, and Teresa, I would just go one step further and say that to experience, to have love, the love of self also equates to love. To not to not feel loved and to not experience the joy of loving is um, not what God intended for us, and it's incredibly painful. So definitely love. Definitely to have our needs met. Um, definitely. So you can see, so I would find, my guess is there's not one person here or who will listen afterwards that doesn't in some way fall in some area of it not being the way you want it to be. That you would like more love and community, you'd like a healthier body, you'd like more money, you would like, I, we're all always expanding in some area. And because I believe that our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and attitudes are the forerunner of our having those things, then in order to have more of those things, we have to change. We have to become different. Otherwise, we'll have the same, right? You'll always have the same if we don't become different. So those are our two primary really lookings for today. The exploration of the conditioned self, whatever that means to you, which is the ego self. And by the way, if you want to know what some of that stuff is, just describe your parents. Get out a piece of paper and write down everything you were taught, everything you were told. What did your parents believe in? What did your religious leaders believe in? What was said to you by teachers? You will begin to discover what could be invisible forces driving behaviors and belief systems, therefore driving outcome. And then also, I would draw a great big heart on a piece of paper and write down what your motivator is: more love, more freedom, more peace, better relationships, more joy in your life. Like, how can you have more joy? Who do you need to become in order to have more joy? What do you need to let go of? What do you need to embrace? And that's, more joy, more money, more love, more peace, more freedom. All of those things require us to fine tune ourselves, and we have the capacity to fine tune ourselves. It's how we're made. Yes. Do you say yes? Now, there are some spiritual practices. Oh, I'm going to run out of juice on this computer in just a few. Wow. Okay. Right in the nick of time. So there are some spiritual practices when you're in victim consciousness. Now, meditation is not on my list, and I'm going to tell you why. Because meditating with a conditioned mind is almost impossible. Truly it is. Because your mind won't let you be. So, at the beginning, if spiritual practices are new for you, I would try silence in nature. Silence in nature truly means turn off your radio, turn off your TV, turn off your iPod, and try just being still. Anywhere, in your house, in the backyard, on a carry walkway, silence. And to get out into nature as much as you can, because nature is the presence of the Creator, whatever that means to you. So it'll be easier for you to begin to observe the conditioned self and the unconditioned self. Journaling is also a wonderful practice for beginning, which is to write, pick up a pen and start writing. What are my beliefs? Write them down. What would I like to believe? Write that down. What would really motivate me to quit drinking? Write that down, like journaling. It helps you to know yourself. Spiritual study, of course, which is what you're doing here. We are studying here together. And then all kinds of physical practices, yoga, tai chi, and other body-mind practices. There's a wonderful woman. Her name is Allie,Ally. She is, you can find her on YouTube, and she does something called Nidra Yoga, Nidra, Nidra Yoga. And it's just put on your earphones and do this 10, 15, 20-minute practice with her, and it's so emotionally balancing. So anyway, silence, nature, journaling, study, and yoga, tai chi. I have to pray us out because I have 12 minutes. So, or 12% left. It's getting redder and redder. All right. So next week, next week is forgiveness and giving up your story. I don't know how I'm going to do this because I'll be in Botswana, but stay tuned for the next lesson. If you want to jump on here, you can go to my, I'm going to copy this for you and stick it on here very quickly so you can use it as a link. I'll be back in about 10 minutes on my Zoom room. This is my Zoom, link to my Zoom room. You can go onto the website. I'm going to post the Four Kingdoms. And you can also go on to get the blog. If you don't already have the blog weekly, you can go on and see what I've posted and also sign up for the future ones. All right. All right. So I prayed us in, so I'm going to pray us out. And I will see those of you who want to join me on Zoom in about 5 minutes. Give me a chance to go plug in my power, and we'll take it from there. All right. So take another deep breath with me and turn within. Inviting you to turn within to that space and place and dimension within you that is whole, perfect, and complete, that nothing needs to be changed, that you are exactly as God made you. You are loving, you are joyful, you are abundant, you are healthy, you are peaceful, you are everything you need already is already there. We are not asking ourselves to get rid of anything, to change anything, to improve. We're asking ourselves to let go of everything we do not need, that we gathered along the way of this human incarnation. And so I just give thanks for everything that's transpired here today, the blessings that we have received, the blessings we have given. I know that the words and the ideas carry on beyond our time together today, and that shifts begin to happen for you. I know that this is true. I accept them. I celebrate them. I support them, and with every ounce of my being. And so until the next time we meet, we give thanks, we let this be, and so it is. Amen. All right, beloveds, thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next Saturday, one way or another. I'll either record it or show up in Botswana. But between now and then, I'll see some of you in a few minutes, and the rest of you, I'll see you the next time. Peace and blessings. Bye.